Hello, it's Scott Manley here, and today we're looking at the latest update of Star Citizen, which was released basically 2 days before Christmas, and signals a switch from pure CryEngine to Lumberyard. Yes, that's Amazon's version of CryEngine, which, well, that's a really interesting decision, which we'll talk a bit more about. But one of the biggest features that has been added is Star Marine. Now, this is kind of a video game within the Star Marine universe, the Star Citizen universe. It's basically their first-person shooter. It does have customization of loadouts and weapons. You can choose your side. You still can't adjust your character, although I do notice that the character is now not a white dude. Adding some much needed diversity to the game, thank you very much. Yeah, I mean, it's easy enough, you just obviously select your loadout. Apparently there is a bit of a glitch right now where if you save the loadout and immediately start the game, sometimes it won't propagate to the game itself, but whatever. I'm bad at the game, so I'm not going to blame my loadout for it. You have your standard game option, last stand versus elimination. You have you have a couple of different levels to look at, and I gotta say, the thing does play pretty much like a CryEngine first-person shooter. I mean, being able to do a first-person shooter in CryEngine is probably one of the easiest things you can do. CryEngine was built for first-person shooters, and so it should be no surprise that they actually have got this working, and it works pretty well. Having said that, it is an alpha and it is part of a much bigger project that's supposed to focus on spaceships, so it should come as no surprise that it's not really quite as good as Call of Duty Infinite Warfare or Battlefield 1. I mean, it's not had anything approaching the budgets or developers thrown at it that those AAA shooters have. You're not going to be buying Star Citizen for this just yet. I mean, who knows? It's an early access, it has potential. So yeah, I mean, it's played pretty well. I've quite enjoyed it. I've not been very good at it. The camera does tend to go a little nutty at times, but I will say I am really glad they have managed to stabilize the camera, because that was such a big problem. I did occasionally have the hacking game, or the hacking component, kind of break down on me because I was adjusting the camera or moving around, But yeah, I mean, it's alpha. What are you gonna expect? I mean, I'm really glad this is finally in the game, because it'll give the developers a chance to kind of tune the first-person shooter components. Previously, the only way to really do it was inside the persistent universe, and to get a first-person shooter match running was such a chore. You had to go out to some station, you had to agree to meet people there, and then you would have other people causing trouble or shooting your spaceships down as you got there, and you wouldn't respawn in the station. Having a simple arena-style shooter is really going to accelerate the development of this, hopefully. Now, while we admire more of my shooty handiwork, let's talk a little more about Lumberyard and what that means. Well, honestly, it probably doesn't really mean that much. It was a big surprise. For the last year, the developers have been talking about how they've been working on heavily modifying CryEngine to add things like 64-bit coordinate systems and various other features. Of course, their local physics grids. But Lumberyard is essentially a fork. I believe it's based on CryEngine 3.8, and Star Citizen was based on 3.7 with a bit of code brought over. I mean, I could be wrong on the exact versions, but, one of the main things is that it's integrated with the Amazon Web Services, and no doubt Amazon is going to make a whole ton of money. After all, each of these updates is, tens of gigabytes, so that'll be very good in terms of just traffic alone, I'm sure. The flip side of this, of course, is that Crytek has had some financial problems over Christmas, and essentially a whole bunch of staff has been left unpaid, and they're closing studios. So I'm not saying that there is any causal relationship one way or another, but it is an interesting data point in light of this latest announcement, which literally just went out with this release. In the few weeks of testing between the Evocati group and the PTU, we haven't had any sign that there was any change of the engine. And there's been a lot of positive and negative comments. Honestly, I've heard some crazy positive comments along the lines of, well, finally we can have 1,000-player battles. No, you're not going to have 1,000-player battles. The engine is not going to handle this. This is not EVE Online. EVE Online very specifically scales back on the fidelity to allow many more players to participate in those conflicts, and even then they impose time dilation during the biggest battles to make sure that everybody gets a fair chance at blowing up their enemy. Now, I'm pretty sure that for the final release we will still only have a few dozen players per server with dynamic server allocation and instancing and things like that. Also, to be clear, the Amazon Lumberjack license does give them full source code access, so that isn't really changing their low-level access to the game engine, which was of course needed for their local physics grids and 64-bit precision and all this. Although I'm hearing actually when I say 64-bit precision that it's really 2 times 32-bit numbers. They're using floating origin system again. And of course we have in the future the question of the procedural planets tech, and whether that will integrate easily. I'm sure it will, but at this point they are putting the 3.0 release off into next year sometime. I mean, even before then there's already a whole bunch of bugs in 2.6. And I obviously don't expect anyone to be hanging out over the Christmas holidays fixing these bugs. That would be cruel, to be honest. I mean, to be clear, the game is pretty playable, unlike the 2.0 release, which dropped just before Christmas last year and really was awful. And we'll figure out in the new year whether the Amazon thing ultimately helps them or hinders them. I'm not going to make any judgment one way or another right now. The first-person shooter, it's working. It's actually quite fast to get into a game. The loading times, holy wow, they've really done some great work on the loading times. Maybe that's because they have better servers. Who knows? But it's nice to be able to get into a game relatively quickly and start murdering other players. The zero-G sections are in there. You can jump outside and zip around the exterior of the station to find access routes. You do have like health injections or whatever to heal yourself. There, having taken a shortcut around the exterior, I can zip in here and fall down and get stuck in the I've fallen down animation because of course I landed upside down. Meanwhile, I'm also getting shot, which just doesn't help very much. Wow, got my legs and my arms are all hurt. But my little injection fixes everything because of course this is a video game. A video game within the Star Citizen universe. Anyway, let's get back to the regular mini-universe. They did have a few extra spacecraft which were available during PTU testing for those people that hadn't paid money. They have the Origin 85X Limited. Now this is actually a support ship for their luxury Origin 890, well, it's a big giant luxury yacht, and this was their little runabout that would dock and you could fly to the planet's surface and stuff. It is armed. It's a 2-seater. It's nice and fast. It looks pretty stylish. There, 2-seaters side by side, so you can kind of cruise and look at those beautiful beaches and all that. Of course, it has Origin's super high quality canopies that are beautiful and easy to see through. It also responds quickly, just like any of the other Origin spacecraft. Well, I haven't tried the 890 because that is not yet in game. You can actually buy this individually, and it does have quantum drive capability, so you will be able to jump around the system and look at things. It's not currently in the Electronic Access Store, so you can't, earn rec to basically fly it in-game. The only way to get it at this point in time is to pay real money, with all the usual caveats that this is really a funding strategy for the final game, and you shouldn't really consider this a purchase, except that it is a purchase, etc, etc, etc. I mean, honestly, it looks nice enough. It's your standard kind of Origin spacecraft with wings, just like the Origin 300 series or the Origin M50 Interceptor. I do find it interesting that it's smaller than the 300 series, but it has enough room to put 2 pilots side by side. And hey, to be honest, it is a luxury pleasure craft kind of thing, so, if you are going to be showing off the space to, your boyfriend and or girlfriend, you probably want to have them sitting next to you instead of behind you. So another one of the big additions to the game is the Drake Caterpillar. So the Drake Caterpillar was announced during the original Kickstarter and pretty much hadn't been seen in game for a long time. So it was one of the oldest ships never to have been seen in engine until now. Now, it was originally pitched as kind of the pirate version of the Freelancer, except that it's like 3 times as expensive, or it was sold for like 3 times the price. Yeah, it's a whole lot bigger. I mean, the Freelancer is relatively small. It's like a space Winnebago, whereas this is a proper semi-truck in space with modular cargo containers that you can swap out in theory. At least it was pitched it. I'm not sure if that's still the plan. So yeah, while it's a regular hauler, it's also supposed to be pitched as the pirate base ship. So, you'll of course have a couple of pirate ships escorting this, and maybe you'll have a squadron of Dragonfly space bikes inside, so that you can be like the big van of your motorbike gang. I don't know, I mean, that's how they pitch this stuff. Whether it makes it into the final game, of course, I cannot guarantee. Now, there was one other ship that was added which I did not get a chance to look at before they shut down the persistent test universe, and that is the Drake Herald, which is supposed to be a fast information runner. It's just the sort of ship that you want to transmit the Death Star plans to so that you can carry it across an Imperial blockade and back to the Rebel base, or something like that, I don't know. Again, it will probably just turn into slightly different versions of missions available if you have that ship. It was small, fast and light. People were racing with them apparently, but I completely missed that opportunity. In fact, this is me trying to get on board the Caterpillar. Took a long time to find the exact spot to stand where I could get on board properly instead of, teleporting through to some command station. But here we go. Look at it. It's a totally industrial, very utilitarian interior. Obviously, the different ship manufacturers have different aesthetics, and the Drake hardware comes a little more rough. It's angular. Lighting levels are a lot lower so that your CD activities can be done under the cover of darkness. Lots of yellow handlebars everywhere because, oh yes, that's why I didn't get to see it fly. Yes, due to terrible timing on my part, they shut down the PTU while I was testing. I did get some other shots when I was looking at it inside the hangar. What's fun here is this is the ventral turret on the bottom, so I'm actually upside down and that is the floor above my head there. So yeah, you'll see that there's like a flip as I come up through here and get back into the spacecraft, into the rest of the hull. In the Star Citizen universe, there is artificial gravity, so that's why you can have these nice local physics grids for running around. The only other game I can think of that has like the localized physics grids would be Space Engineers, that has, of course, you can put gravity generators on ships, and you can also do fun things like walking on walls. Yeah, here's back to where we were earlier, and moving forwards takes us into the Modular Cargo Bay section. You see there's 2 doors between each of these because at least in some of the concept art, you'll be able to take these out and replace them with different modules. There's a little gangplank or whatever, an elevated walkway, I guess. It's not a gangplank because we're not going to make people walk it to kick them out, even though it is a pirate ship. Here we get up to the second turret, which is on the front. It's on the top, so there's no little gravity flip going on here. We get up, and yes, I can shoot those pesky heroes who think that they can take on us pirates. At least I could if I actually owned the game in the regular universe, but I'm not going to spend $300 on this. It's a multi-crew ship, so if you go around to the back, there's an engineering section. There, systems access. Where is it? Down here. Climb down the ladder. Try to make sure you grab all the rungs. Okay, you failed that. Never mind. Yeah, there is the engineering console at the back, so if you want to be part of the crew, you can hang out and adjust power levels and shield levels while somebody flies the ship and somebody's firing with guns and lasers and things like that. It's not that interesting when you're still inside the hangar, unfortunately. Okay, moving swiftly on. We do now have a new version, a new mode in Arena Commander called Pirate Swarm. So Pirate Swarm is essentially the same as Vandal Swarm, but instead of fighting Vandal fighters, you're now fighting the pirates. This was again something that was mentioned, maybe a year or so ago. Finally, it's made it into the game, and there's an interesting, reward for anybody that runs through all the levels on this. You can unlock the ability or unlock the right to buy a pirate version of the Caterpillar. So yeah, it's another one of those cases, instead of being it's pay to win, it's win to get the right to pay for one of the new fancy spaceships that's in the game. Anyway, the good news about Pirate Swarm is that we don't have the pirate AI talking back to you, because that would become old really, really quickly since they only have a few lines. But the good news is you do get to fight against a whole different, variety of spacecraft. You get pirate Auroras, I think you get some pirate Origin 300s, you get some Gladiuses, and I don't know, as far as I played it, I was shooting down things like sabers, which was hecka fun. I'm of course flying my Super Hornet here, although I'll have to lock all the turret positions forwards to make it usable. If you have them moving in gimbals, it just moves the sight around. It's very, very hard to play with unless you're perhaps using the mouse control. Anyway, the game structure is the same as Ventral Swarm. Multiple waves, every third wave features an elite pilot such as A-Burn. I haven't read, but I'm going to presume that means 15 waves is what you have to get through to get the winning token to unlock the purchase token or whatever. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I am much more happy playing this compared to Ventral Swarm. This feels that the hostiles you're facing, they have a lot more different capabilities, and that makes for a more interesting single-player game. Back in the Persistent universe, there have been a few updates here and there. There are some new missions, new features sitting around. If you go looking, you may find a Stonehenge made of Benny's noodle machines. Floating around in the ring around Yela, you find some new beacons and wrecked ships and things like that. They may not be new, but I just thought I'd show you this one, playing this awful, awful music. Listen, if you get in close, this is clearly, since Yela is where the pirates hang out, this is clearly a pirate radio station playing underground rave tunes. Yes, there we go. Yes. I would be quiet, but really then you would just hear the music, which may not be what you want. Still, I guess it's better than the awfulness that is Full Burn. Well, it's not awful, it's just really embarrassing. Yeah, like, maybe I can shoot this thing. Nope. Nope. Well, my crappy M50 lasers are not having an effect on this. Well, I shall just have to move away from this as quickly as possible. And doing that will use the new boost versus afterburner functionality. That's been completely revised, so you can actually use the boost functionality in Arena Commander, which really allows you to close distance a whole lot faster. There's been some more changes over at Grim Hex. It looks a whole lot more... well, these things look a whole lot more damaged than they were the last time I looked. Maybe I wasn't paying attention, but man, those sparks look pretty dangerous. Of course, they don't actually do anything if I fly near them. At least I haven't managed to kill myself getting close. You can still head through the back door of Grim Hex, incidentally. I don't know, I actually had some trouble finding the front door of Grim Hex. Clearly I haven't been flying there often enough. But yeah, the airlocks are still here, sitting wide open. The debris still floating about in 0G, but now, if you bump it, here's an interesting thing. Well, previously, these things had a tendency to reset to their original position, but now they will happily float around forever, even if you shoot them. There, if I shoot that, it'll just float around until it hits the wall. It doesn't reset itself, at least not while I'm looking, so that's a vast improvement. NPCs, not much improvement, although this guy is a bit more shaky than he once was. I'm going to call that a bug. And there is a new bar on Grim Hex. Again, it's just for show right now, not sure you can really do much in it. Yeah, what is this? I don't know. R38? Not sure what that's a reference to. Maybe I'm just not reading it. There we go, look. There's a bar, but there is no bartender because this is not the Million Mile High Club. The Million Mile High Club does have a bartender, but this is some pirate's den, so no bartender here. Oh yeah, unread data. So there is a data pad here. I'm presuming this is related to one of the missions. I'm not sure which. We have wonderfully detailed bottles of alcohol all over the place, so you can wish yourself a Merry Christmas in-game. And yeah, if you want to buy yourself Christmas presents in-game, I guess there are like 5 new variants of spaceships in the game. There's the Saber Comet, the Gladius Valiant, the Avenger Titan Renegade, the Hornet Wildfire, and the Vanguard Hoplite. These are a whole bunch of new variants of existing ships that have been added into the game. Again, insert the usual comments about these being only for people that really want to spend a lot of money supporting the game. If you just want to buy access to the game, just buy the base version, which comes with either an Aurora or a Mustang. And with that, I've remembered I have some real Christmas shopping to do. Until the next time, I'm Scott Manley. Fly safe.